The Muslim community have a special way of handling issues of finance, and this is why Islamic banking was put in place to address such interests. Today on News in Depth, we learn what Islamic banking is, especially that it is a new phenomenon in Zambia. So far, the Bank of Zambia has already put in place guidelines to supervise this form of banking. My name is Pennipher Sikainda-Nyirenda, welcoming you to today's edition of News in Depth as we learn what exactly are the fundamental elements of Islamic banking. Stay tuned for more right here on News in Depth. The financial sector in Zambia has seen a robust growth over the years. The country has recorded an increase in the number of commercial banks and financial products. Away from commercial banks, there has also been a growth in microfinancial institutions. The growth of the financial sector has given customers a number of choices. But there's a type of banking that has come on the Zambian market with a difference, and this is Islamic banking. Islamic banking is said to have the same purpose as conventional banking, except that it operates in accordance with the rules of Sharia, also known as fiqh al-muamalat.
Islamic banking, as opposed to conventional banking, is based on profit sharing and also loss sharing, meaning that if you go into partnership with a financial institution, then if you make a profit, you are able to share that profit with the financial institution, and if you make a loss, similarly, you are supposed to share that loss with the financial institution. There are certain transactions that are prohibited under Islamic banking, and these include those that are speculative in nature. For instance, gambling, lottery, and so on. A bank or financial institution cannot finance such a venture.
One difference that sets Islamic banking apart is that it is offering a fee-paid retail service that does not involve interest payments.
Interest, it's unlawful. That makes the best Islamic banking because of interest. That's number one. Two, when you borrow, you don't have to worry. Paying back, you pay the same money you have borrowed. Or when you bank, you get the same money you have banked, you have saved. Unlike these other commercial banks, if you want to buy a house, you get 300,000 kwacha. In return, you fail to return that 300,000 kwacha, then your properties will be taken away. So Islamic Bank has that leeway, the heart of a religious banking, that you borrow, you cannot meet the following. There are options where they'll give you, okay, instead of this, you can do this. But these other banks, there's no such. You fail to pay, then you are gone.
Sharia law prohibits the payment of charges for the renting of money, known as riba or interest.
The basic principle remains the same in that the bank takes capital and lends it out, and it's business for the bank. However, that has to comply with the Sharia requirements. So for conventional banking, we'll take the money, give it to you, and we put interest rate there, make a profit, and go back to pay our depositors and dividends to our shareholders. When it comes to Islamic banking, the key difference there is that we do not transfer the risk. We actually form a partnership with the client, and it becomes more of a trade arrangement between the bank and the client.
How then will the Zambian banking regulatory body handle matters of interest?
The thinking behind the regulation is also to ensure that the general governance approach for Islamic banking is adhered to. As you may know, Islamic banking is based on strong ethical and religious tenets, and it is these tenets that need to be observed. And so the governance framework must take into account these ethical considerations. And one of the things why we came up with this guideline was that financial institutions needed to be given a framework to establish their operations in Islamic banking. And the idea behind this was that they should conform to the standards that are being observed elsewhere where Islamic banking is being provided, and also to ensure that there is compliance to Sharia principles. Like I indicated, the ethical considerations, religious considerations need to be taken into account.
Haram is another key element in Islamic banking, as it prohibits investing in businesses that provide goods or services considered contrary to its principles. Also prohibited are transactions involving excessive uncertainty, gharar, and all forms of gambling, maysir. Despite its name, Islamic banking allows clients to draw finances from both Muslims and non-Muslims alike.
Like is the case everywhere in the world, you find that even non-Muslims are able to access the financing. And I think that in Zambia we have been crying about the dearth of financing to small, medium enterprises. And we think that there are opportunities here that can be captured by those that seek to borrow. So we think that Islamic banking is the way to go.
But what has necessitated the introduction of Islamic banking? In Zambia, the Muslim community is estimated around 10 to 12%. These are not just religious persons, but also play a part in the country's economic activities in various sectors. In this segment of the population, some are believed to be avoiding commercial banking services based on their religious beliefs, hence keeping money in their homes. In order to cater for this part of the population that has remained unbanked, Zambia, a predominantly Christian state, has followed the trends of other economies around the world which have adopted Islamic banking. The central bank is supervising this process and has already established regulatory guidelines.
The process that led to the development of this framework was very consultative. We consulted both internally within the Bank of Zambia, and we also consulted with various stakeholders within Zambia. We also received expert review of the framework by the Islamic Financial Services Board, and this is the standard setting body in matters of Islamic banking. And we also reviewed a lot of practices that are taking place in African countries, in Asian countries, and European countries. And the framework was informed by all these developments. And through this cooperation and consultations, we developed this framework, and we think that it is robust enough.
وحرم ذلك على المؤمنين والذين يرمون المحصنات ثم لم يأتوا.
Islamic banking is becoming a popular feature in both Islamic and non-Islamic states. Countries like Turkey, for instance, have 3% of its financial services offering Islamic-based services. How then should Zambians receive the concept of introducing this new form of banking?
It is a welcome idea. You know, as a country, we have the population. We are multiracial, and we also have Christians, we have Muslims, we have Hindus. So we are in a diverse society. So it is important that we have a financial sector that is inclusive, that takes care of the needs of all the sectors of our society. I speak like this particularly because we're referring to Islamic banking, and we have quite, I think, a significant proportion of our population which is Islam, and they actually are engaged in a lot of economic activity in this country.
Given the progress made so far in the introduction of Islamic banking in Zambia, the question of demand arises.
I believe we have the demand in the market, and you will agree that most of the Muslim population in this country, they're actually involved in a lot of businesses, and others are professionals, and are involved in the economy in different ways. We do not want to have anyone being left out from the banking system, because if anyone is left out of the banking system, then it becomes difficult to have financial monitoring, to be able to know what is happening in the economy and so on. So if you look at the percentage of Muslims that we have in this country, and probably you add a few others that may want also to participate, it is a significant number, and it should be able to justify the launch of Islamic banking in the country, and it's something that has been talked about for a very long time.
All of us in Zambia, in Africa, the whole world, the same banking system are the same. People, sometimes they avert, instead of putting the monies in the bank, so that the bank can use it to develop the country, they prefer to put it in the house. So that is wrong to start with. Islamically, Christianity, and the rest, it is wrong.
In terms of the demand side, we conducted a survey in 2008, even before we started working on this regulatory framework. And our findings were that 80% of the respondents, which are financial institutions, indicated that they were willing and ready to start offering Islamic banking services as soon as the regulatory framework was in place. Further, a number of banks also indicated that their customers were desirous of having products that are compliant to the to Islamic banking, and therefore we thought that in terms of demand, I think the demand is there.
Standard Chartered Bank has suggestions on ways of effectively regulating this form of banking given its international character as a bank. The bank is already offering Islamic banking services in other countries around the Middle East and Asia. Sani Zulu is the Standard Chartered Bank head of retail clients for Zambia and Southern Africa.
Islamic banking is very, very, highly regulated by, the Sharia regulatory body that or board that has actually to be formed even here as we are talking about launching Islamic banking, and it has to be understood by a lot of people. So we have a lot of people within the banking industry that will have to appreciate and understand, the technicalities of how Islamic banking works. Systems have to be enhanced and upgraded to be able to comply, to ensure that things like interest and so on, they do not apply, and the regulators themselves, different regulators that we have in the market, they also obviously have to be trained. They have to increase in terms of the knowledge of how to monitor, how to regulate Islamic banking, and the clients themselves have to there has to be client awareness.
How have countries like Egypt implemented this form of banking?
Well, in fact, we have started initiating in the 60s this new banking, and it was a small unit. in the Egyptian bank at that time. And then after that, it started to be all over the Islamic countries. We found that it's really very beneficial. We have a lot of Egyptians and businessmen who are would like to have this kind of banking, which is what we call it's along our Sharia or our religion. And some of the people like it to have it at something which is credible and worthy and is profitable. Most of the banks in Egypt now are having an Islamic branch to attract people to it.
The introduction of Islamic banking is also expected to transform the investment landscape in Zambia.
Well, it could be indeed. It can be a factor to help and to help boost investment in the country. You know, there are probably some investors who predominantly come from Muslim states, and because we do not have an infrastructure in the country, we do not have a banking system that supports their beliefs, their culture. As much as we need investment in the country, you know, we should guard against bringing in, you know, people in the country who might end up fighting the country, you know, who might bring in cultures that are not really acceptable in our society. Because I think there has always been this invisible war between Muslims and Christians. So it is important that you know, we do not, as a country, because of wanting investors, perhaps bring in extremism.
An embassy in Zambia is optimistic that investment in Zambia from the Arab community can significantly increase given the benefits it provides for those who have strict investment guidelines.
Beside the Arab businessmen, you have Egyptians who find themselves that using this Islamic window, it is much more related to religion to have their money invested. So a lot of Egyptian businessmen also, they use this window. Here in Zambia, you have Islamic minority. Some of them they are wealthy. They have their money, but unfortunately, they will tell you, "I don't want to put it through conventional banking. We are so strict to Islam and so on. So we want this kind of Islamic way to have it." So you will attract this portion. Plus, I think. I'm here more than 1 year and 4 months. The investment possibilities is enormous here in Zambia.
The Egyptian government is equally willing to help Zambia set up an Islamic bank.
One of them is what I'm mentioning, this Egyptian company. It's leading its financial Islamic regulations, and they are very much interested in cooperating with the banks here and with the Bank of Zambia to modify the system into Islamic. Because they are leading pioneer in the world, not only in Egypt, and it will attract some Egyptian businessmen who wants to abide by the Islamic way or the Islamic window. It will have.
It has been deemed beneficial for Islamic banking to be offered side by side with conventional banking, as it offers the citizenry more options in the financial industry.
Well, I think that we might not be ready in terms of the practicalities, but I think 2, 3, 4 years ago there was this idea was mooted, and Bank of Zambia is not averse to the idea, but from a societal point of view, of course, there will always be questions of are we now going against the principles of Christianity, since we're a Christian state? No, there'll be that resistance. But since we have accepted as a nation that yes, we're a Christian nation, but we are tolerant of other religions, you know, I think it's only fair that we do actually accommodate this sector of society.
Benefits of Islamic banking are said to be numerous.
For a person who is saving in that Islamic bank gets a lot of benefits. 1, no corruption. 2, you have no interest. 3, all his money will be given to him. You can even borrow. It's allowed to borrow. Then you make your own profit, not interest. So we also encourage Muslims, non-Muslims to bank as we are doing into other banks. Muslims and non-Muslims, we are banking into all these banks.
By introducing Islamic banking, it then helps to include people that are left out, but also it supports the growth of the economy. Because if I'm running a business and the business, I cannot be able to recapitalize the business, to go and borrow and bring in and put in funds in the business to employ more people, then we are slowing down the job creation agenda. We are slowing down the economic growth. By offering that, it's exactly what would be able to help to enhance our economic growth in this country.
How ready are the Zambian commercial banks in the implementation of Islamic banking, given the infrastructure requirements of this fragile form of banking?
So far, we had interactions with about 8 commercial banks that have indicated that they are ready, but obviously their systems and processes have to conform with the regulatory framework, and perhaps at this point our view is that before they launch, they have to make sure that they have systems, processes that will ensure that they are compliant in terms of the regulatory and prudential requirements that come with or that are prescribed under the framework that we launched in December.
If you ask me to say, are we ready today? I'll definitely say no. Are we ready to start the process of ensuring that everything is in place for the launch of Islamic banking to the public? I would say that yes, the market is ready. As you know, the central bank launched the guidelines that are leading towards, the establishment of the regulatory framework around Islamic banking sometime in December. So the journey has started, the process has started, and I would say that we, as Standard Chartered, definitely will offer the support and expertise. As you know, we are very strong in Asia and the Middle East, and in most of those countries, the bank offers Islamic banking, and we've got experts in those areas that as a bank, we are ready to invite to come in this market, to come and give support and explain how Islamic banking works and how it has to operate in this economy.
The Bank of Zambia further indicates that introduction of Islamic banking is part of the Central Bank Financial Sector Development Plan.
Under the development plan, one of the objectives was to ensure that all segments of our community have access to formal financial services, and because of that, we felt that the Muslim community, although I must say that Islamic banking is not limited to the Muslim community, but most of them were excluded from the financial services because they did not have maybe I must say because of the absence of ethically appropriate products. And so a number of things come to mind, given that the Muslim population in Zambia is about 10%, and that also they control some of the key sectors in the economy. Now, the absence of appropriate products entails that the money does not come into the banking system. And so one of the advantages of introducing Islamic banking is that the money will now be introduced in the banking system, and because of that, I think there are positive implications or positive externalities, if you like.
The Muslim community stands out as one religious grouping with strict rules on money-related matters. Islamic partnerships, referred to as mudaraba, have dominated the business world for centuries, and its concept on interest found very little application in regular day-to-day transactions. It is further believed that most of the principles of Islam have existed for centuries, though they have been altered over time. Others link the origin of the modern Islamic banking to the very birth of Islam, when the Prophet Muhammad acted as an agent for his wife's trading operations. Effective handling of money is dear to the hearts of many in the Islamic faith.
This banking is meant for people who are believers, the people of the Torah, that is the people of Moses, the people of Zabur, the Psalms, the people of David, the people of Jesus who follows the gospel, and the people of Muhammad who follows the Quran. The law says you should not cheat. So it is for the people who are not cheating, the faithful, the righteousness, to hold the finances for other people.
Modernization of Islamic banking took place in the 1960s. Egypt made history in 1963 in a location known as Mit Gamir, where its population were very religious, and introduced the first ever Islamic interest-free bank. An outline of the achievements made in Egypt is ably outlined by the country's ambassador to Zambia.
To be very honest, mostly, let us say, all the banks in Egypt, or most of the banks of Egypt, are conventional. But in each bank, there is a section for Islamic banking, because it attracts each time a lot of people. This is one side. We have also pure Islamic banks that only works with the Sharia ones. It only uses the Islamic way. These are more than 20 banks. We have in total more than 200 banks. So, some of them are pure Islamic, and most of the others, they start conventional, and then they found that to attract some of the people and their money, to have this Islamic window, which is beneficial for them.
While the concept is still being developed, Islamic banking is a development Zambians have as an option to embrace, given its global and inclusive character. Thank you so much for joining us on today's edition of News in Depth. This is where we end today's program, as we were looking at Islamic banking. We hope that you've been able to understand this kind of banking much better than before. Well, we're back with you for another interesting news documentary on this program next week. From me, Pennipher Sikainda-Nyirenda, it's goodbye and God bless you.